Welcome to the Win Streaks preview and prediction of all 32 NFL teams for the upcoming 2017 season. Over the next few weeks, I will be covering all 32 teams, so please subscribe on YouTube or the podcast platform you're listening on so you don't miss an episode. My name is Corey Foister. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Corey Foister. Follow the show on social media, Twitter at Win Streak News, Facebook.com/TheWinStreak, TheWinStreak.com. Leave a review and subscribe on the podcast platform you're listening on. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Soaring Jets Production. If you're listening on YouTube, drop me a comment below. Contact us at soaringjetsproductions@gmail.com or thewinstreak.com/contact. Join our fantasy football league. You can find out more information about that on our Facebook page. Top 10 Super Bowl matchups we want to see is our newest top 10 episode. Every week, me and my co-host Brandon Myers, we do a weekly sports wrap-up show of all the latest football, baseball, hockey, and basketball news and happening around all the leagues. So please check that out as well if you've never listened to anything of the Win Streak. But today, we are doing the 2017 Minnesota Vikings preview and predictions. This is Minnesota's 57th season in the NFL, the fourth season under head coach Mike Zimmer. Zimmer is 26-21 as head coach, 0-1 in postseason. Really, I don't mean to bring up awful memories to Minnesota Viking fans, but you really should have won that game. That kicker, once again, brought back memories of the 1998 NFC Championship game. You just don't have luck when it comes to kickers. General manager is Rick Spellman. Owner is, I know I'm going to butcher his name, Ziggy Whiff. He's a big Giants fan who once followed Lawrence Taylor into the bathroom to get his autograph and probably scored some blow also because, well, it's Lawrence Taylor. I don't know why I had to add that, but that was just so weird. I remember hearing that story and it was like, wow, you followed Lawrence Taylor into a bathroom in Manhattan to get his autograph. That's dedicated. This is the second season in the new stadium that was built for Minnesota. Minnesota will be hosting this season's Super Bowl 52. The Vikings will attempt to make history as the first team to play in the Super Bowl on their home field. First time since 2006 season that the Vikings will be without Purple Jesus, a.k.a. Adrian Peterson. Vikings last made the playoffs in 2015. The Purple People Eaters have been to 4 Super Bowls but lost all 4. Bills and Vikings, only 2 teams to have no rings in 4 Super Bowl appearances. The Purple and Gold won the NFL Championship in 1969. 4 conference championships, 1969, 1973, 1974, 1976. They were a solid team in the 1970s, a really solid team that just couldn't get it done and just couldn't get over the hump when it came to winning on Super Bowl Sunday. 19 division championships, only 3 in the NFC North. 2008, 2009, and 2015. 28 playoff appearances overall. Only missed playoff twice in the 1970s. The Vikings are ranked the 22nd most valuable team in NFL franchise. Vikings finished the 2016 season with a 8-8 record. That is good for third in the NFC North. They had 6 Pro Bowlers for the 2016 season. Sam Bradford took over at quarterback after Teddy Bridgewater went down in the preseason. Vikings started out 5-0 prior to the bye week. Personally, to me, I was tweeting about it on Twitter at Corey Foister. I was like, oh, the Minnesota Vikings are definitely going to make the playoffs. Granted, I'm a little biased. I'm a New York Jets fan, but I have a soft spot for Minnesota teams. My co-host, he's a big Minnesota Timberwolves fan, so we're both a little bit biased when it comes to Minnesota. But I thought for sure that the Vikings would get in, but I think a lot of people were going to take that bet, but then they just fell apart quickly after winning only 3 of the remaining games after the bye. One of only 7 teams to start 5-0 and miss the playoffs. Another Vikings team back in the 70s did the same exact thing. Franchise what if? I have 2 of them here. Brett Favre didn't throw that awful pick in the 2009 NFC Championship game. Saints would go on to beat the Colts in Super Bowl. I think the Vikings could have beat the Colts also. I mean, I really do. I really think the Vikings had a solid chance of winning a Super Bowl that year. Brett Favre was on fire. He had one of his best seasons ever in his career. My other franchise what if scenario is Randy Moss. What if Randy Moss stayed a Viking, and also 1998 Vikings were 15-1? What if Gary Anderson, who hadn't missed a field goal all season, made that 38-yarder field goal to win the game? Vikings would have played the Broncos in the Super Bowl, and if you've listened to my Broncos preview and I've went through the history of the Broncos, they've lost a lot of Super Bowls, and I think definitely, without a doubt, the Vikings would have gave the 98 Broncos a lot harder game than the Atlanta Falcons did to the Broncos. Going on to the 2017 outlook, Teddy Bridgewater is still a big question mark. Sam Bradford versus Teddy Bridgewater will be one of the more interesting position battles in the preseason and in the regular season also. This preseason will not Sam Bradford is going to be the starter for now, but when Teddy Bridgewater completely gets healthy, it's going to be interesting to see where the franchise goes. If Sam Bradford is winning, there's no reason to switch him out, but it's going to be interesting. Also interesting is how will the Vikings adjust to life without Purple Jesus? Mike Zimmer's eye might require more surgery, so there's a question around head coach this season. Will he be able to coach the team? We've seen what happened to Gary Kubiak. I hope the best for Mike Zimmer. It's really a scary situation. I liked him. I'm from Cincinnati, and I really liked him as defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Bengals should have got rid of Marvin Lewis and promoted Zimmer to head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. The offensive line was terrible last year, will no doubt improve. At least I'm going on a limb here. You can't really get any worse than what the Minnesota Vikings offensive line was last year. The Vikings have no clear expectation. I'll be completely honest. They could be 12-4 or they could be 4-12. They're a extremely hard team to forecast because who knows? Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Bradford both have a history of injuries, and the Minnesota Vikings, as just a franchise in general, they're really wishy-washy. They can be extremely good one season and extremely bad the next. Biggest positive change for me, the Vikings will now build an offense that doesn't count on Adrian Peterson bailing them out every game. The Vikes saved $18 million in cash and cap space by moving on from Purple Jesus. They jumped up in the second round of the NFL draft to get running back Dalvin Cook. I like the move. I think Dalvin Cook could be a really good running back. Biggest negative change, not much of a change, but the quarterback position is a major problem for the Minnesota Vikings, for really any team to have that, because the Minnesota Vikings, they have two, let's be honest, big-name quarterbacks. You don't have to be a diehard NFL fan to know who the hell Sam Bradford is and Teddy Bridgewater is, but the old saying is, if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterback, and that's kind of where Minnesota stands right now. Bradford will start as Bridgewater continues to rehab. Both have 1 year left on their current deal, so the Vikings don't have to worry about, playing favorite just over who has the longer contract. They could cut loose and go a total different route after the season. I could see them doing that if Bridgewater and Bradford both get hurt. They get a very high draft pick, but it's going to be difficult to draft a quarterback because the Jets are looking for a quarterback. The Bears might be right back looking for a quarterback. The 49ers are definitely looking for a quarterback. If the Jaguars fail yet again, they'll be moving on from Blake Bortles. So there's a lot of teams that are going to be looking. And next year looks like they have a lot of promising young quarterbacks to come out, even if Sam Darnold stays at USC. You got Rosen, you got the kid from Wyoming. You got a lot of great players out there. But both have 1 year left on their contract, like I mentioned. The Vikings have no clear picture what their future of the franchise will look like at the quarterback position. I don't really like that in teams if you don't know who's your quarterback's going to be the next season. Not even next season, this season, next season, the season after that. It can create a lot of problems. The team didn't really address needs in free agency, and once again, like I said, and I'll repeat it again, the offensive line worries me. Mike Zimmerman's seat is warm, but only 6-10 or worse would get him fired, in my opinion. Zimmer's biggest problem is his eye, the offensive line, and keeping his defense from blowing games with dumb mistakes. We've seen that a lot last season. They could have beat the Dallas Cowboys, one of the final games of the season on Thursday Night Football, and just the defense was just messing up. They gave the game away to the Dallas Cowboys. If all three become a problem this year, being the eye, the keeping the defense from making dumb mistakes, and the offensive line, then I think his time in Minnesota will be up. Preseason schedule for the Minnesota Vikings: at Buffalo, at Seattle, 49ers at home, and Dolphins at home. Not too bad of a preseason travel schedule. Got to travel to Buffalo, the East Coast, and then you got to travel to the West Coast to play Seattle, and then home for the next two preseason games, and you open up at home. So Vikings regular season game by game prediction: the Minnesota Vikings have 4 primetime games this season. Saints on Monday Night Football, at Chicago on Monday Night Football, at Cleveland on Thursday Night Football, and at Green Bay on Sunday Night Football. Best worst case scenario: September 11th, you open up on Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints. I say best case, worst case, you beat the New Orleans Saints. The Saints definitely have a better quarterback, but the Saints have a awful defense. I'm not buying that they improved the defense much. What they did in the offseason, they were pretty limited. What they did, the Vikings should win. They looked like a pretty last year. They turned into garbage after the bye, but they still look like a pretty solid home team. They gave the Dallas Cowboys, one of the best teams in the NFC, if not the best, a run for their money at home. They're pretty good up in Minnesota in that dome. So I say you should, best case, worst case, beat the New Orleans Saints and deny Adrian Peterson the chance to beat you at your own place. September 17th at Pittsburgh. Worst case, best case, I say you lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just think the Pittsburgh Steelers are a better team than the Minnesota Vikings. I would be completely shocked if the Vikings could beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I would like it. I'm not a Viking, or I'm not a Steeler fan, so go Vikes on that, but I just don't see it happening. And then September 24th, you play home Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Worst case, you lose this game. Best case scenario, I can see you actually winning this game. I'm really big on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I can see the pressure mounting, being too much, having to go on the road to Minnesota, and the Bucs drop a game that they probably should win. But I can see the Minnesota Vikings pulling the upset here. You go into October, worst case scenario, you are 1-2. Best case scenario, you are 2-1. October 1st, home for the Detroit Lions. Worst case, you lose this game. Best case, you win this game. October 9th at Chicago. You should definitely, worst case, best case, win this game against the Bears. The Bears are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, guaranteed. October 15th, Packers come up to Minnesota. Worst case, best case, I just don't see you beating the Packers, but you are 1-0 against the Packers in your new stadium, so maybe you can keep the streak alive. but I doubt it. October 22nd, Ravens. It really depends if Joe Flacco is playing because they don't seem interested in getting Colin Kaepernick. I just don't believe in Ryan Mallett or the arena football guy that they got backing him up. I'm just not buying it. So if Flacco is not playing, then you're definitely beating the Ravens. If Flacco is playing, you got a 50-50 chance, but I say Flacco will probably beat you. October 29th at Cleveland. Best case, worst case, I think the Browns are going to be good this year, but I think that the Minnesota Vikings are just better than the Browns. They should be able to beat the Cleveland Browns. If you're looking to make it in the playoffs, you definitely have to beat the Browns. And then there's a bye week. So going into November, worst case scenario, you are 3-5. Best case scenario, you are 6-2. At Washington to play the Redskins November 12th. Worst case scenario, you lose this game. Best case, you win. November 19th, Rams. I say you beat the LA Rams. I don't really believe in Jared Goff. There's a lot of question marks there. They got a better head coach this year over Jeff Fisher, but that's just not enough, in my opinion. November 23rd at Detroit. Best case, worst case, I just don't see you winning that game in Detroit. So you go into December. Worst case scenario, you are 4-7. Best case scenario, you are 8-3. You start a lot of traveling in December at Atlanta. Worst case, best case, you lose this game at Carolina. Carolina, it depends which Carolina team comes out. If it's the team from last year, you'll win that game. If it's the team from 2 years ago, you'll lose that game. December 17th, you're back home to play the Cincinnati Bengals. And I say you win this game. I think the Bengals are going to have a bounce back, but that just seems like such a Bengal move to travel up there in late December and have a sit back. And that seems like a perfect sit back game for the Cincinnati Bengals, and it benefits the Minnesota Vikings at Packers on December 23rd. I don't see you winning in Lambeau. And December 31st, home for the Chicago Bears. You'll win that. Like I said, you can't lose to the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are just a hot mess. Hopefully maybe they have a quarterback in Trubisky, but I'm just not. My stock on Trubisky is not that high. So, best case scenario, I can see the Minnesota Vikings going 11-5. Worst case scenario, I can see the Minnesota Vikings going 6-10. I know that's a big. Usually, it's like a 3-game difference on most of these teams, maybe a 4-game difference. But like I said, the Minnesota Vikings, they're hard to predict this season. But my final prediction for the Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to play it safe and go right down the middle. I got them going 8-8. It's really a kind of a tough schedule. I mean, you got 2 games against the Bears that they definitely should win. You got the Rams. You got maybe the Ravens without Flacco, but that's not going to be a cakewalk. You're still going to have to really struggle to win that game. And you got the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. But outside of that, maybe you got the Panthers, the Bengals, Tampa Bay Buccaneers should be good unless, there's always a team that's overhyped in the preseason and it never turns out to be. Last year, it was the Jacksonville Jaguars. People had the Jacksonville Jaguars finally making it in the playoff. It doesn't happen. So who knows? Maybe Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the white horse and all that stuff, and it turns into a pumpkin. So. But yeah, it's really a tough 6 games against the NFC North. Like I said, 2 games against the Bears should be easy, but 4 hard games. 2 against the Packers, 2 against the Lions, the Pittsburgh Steelers, like I said, the Ravens with Flacco. You have the Redskins, you have the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Bengals. I don't know. I just don't see the Minnesota Vikings winning a lot of those games, so once again, I'll go 8-8 for the Vikings. It really wouldn't surprise me if they go 6-10, but it would kind of surprise me if they go 11-5. It would kind of be a pleasant surprise. I think 11-5 they would definitely make a wild card spot in my opinion. Personally, I think out of that division, probably the Packers are going to win it, and the Lions have a chance at a wild card. But the Vikings kind of have a tough schedule, but they could get it done. I just don't think that they do. Once again, my name is Corey Foister. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Corey Foister. Follow the show on social media. That is Twitter at Win Streak News, Facebook.com/TheWinStreak, TheWinStreak.com. Leave a review and subscribe on the podcast platform you're listening on. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is Soaring Jets Productions. Contact us at soaringjetproductions@gmail.com or thewinstreak.com/contact. Join our fantasy football league. You can find out more information about that on our Facebook and official website. Top 10 list, we do those from time to time. The latest one we have is top 10 Super Bowl matchups we want to see. Me and Brandon do a weekly sports wrap-up show, The Win Streak. Please check it out. Until next time, keep winning, everybody.